Do you remember your first job?
I probably babysat for Phil Lockhart's two boys, Phil and Sarah Lockhart's
Okay.
two boys.
Yeah. And how old would you have been?
Oh my goodness, I was a teenager. And for those of you who don't know, Phil Lockhart was the youth minister back when I was in junior high.
Okay. So youth ministers' kids can be kind of crazy. How were his kids?
They weren't too bad.
They weren't too bad. Well, that's good. And do you remember your first job, Dan?
I definitely would have been lawn mowing.
Lawn mowing?
My oldest brother and I
Okay.
took care of several lawns.
Yeah.
And that would have been about 11, 12
Okay.
when
Yeah.
I first started doing that.
So with your brother, you said?
Mm-hmm.
And then, so did you have the harder jobs or the easier jobs?
I thought they were harder, but
Mm-hmm.
they really weren't. Of course, back then that was prior to the electric trimmers or gas trimmers.
Okay.
And you trimmed using hand shears.
Oh, wow.
And so he
Yeah.
mowed and I got to trim around all
Oh, you had the tedious job.
the, yeah.
And
So-
when you say jobs, I assume you mean getting paid for it, because
Sure.
Dad on the farm, he didn't think
Yeah.
he needed, he was feeding us, he didn't.
Yeah,
he
that's
didn't pay
right.
us.
Yeah, that was your payment.
It was room and board.
That's true. So does hand trimming then, do you have to have a certain type of mentality to be able to do that? Did that fit your personality growing up?
No, but it fit my wallet real nicely.
That's good. So I'm assuming they'd pay you better if you trimmed it in addition to,
It was expected.
Okay.
Dad kind of got us into the business, and it was if you're going to do it, you do it right.
yeah,
And right to him was you trim around the foundation of the house and then around all the trees,
Yeah.
and you made it look neat.
Yeah.
If you weren't going to do that, then you weren't going to do the job.
yeah.
So
Now, for both of you, lessons that you learned doing both of those jobs growing up, how often did you find that helped you later in life with those principles?
well, obviously that really worked well because it was just it was a lifestyle. It was the way Dad expected things, and kind of adopted it and realized that there are two ways of doing things, and there's an easy way and there's probably the right way. And so I tried to keep hold of that, and
Yeah.
it was really very good.
Yeah. How about you, Carolyn?
You learn to do a good job, and you learn to get along with people,
Yeah.
and that they will not always agree with you,
That's a hard lesson, isn't it?
especially kids.
Yeah, that's true. Well, and everyone has a different approach to even raising their kids, and so did you have to, as you were babysitting, adopt their style somewhat?
You had to learn how they wanted it done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I'm sure that could be challenging, but I'm sure you were a quick learner with that too. As we get going, Carolyn, why don't you tell us your name and your husband's name, and then what ministry you're serving in?
Okay. My name is Carolyn Taylor, and I'm married to Steve Taylor, and we're involved in the missions committee.
Okay. Before I ask Dan, what's your background that helped you to be so closely connected to the missions ministry?
Well, we were on the mission field in Taiwan for 10 years.
Okay.
We were relief parents or house parents at Cookson Hills for 3 years. We went to Ozark Christian College, both of us graduated, and we were involved in the missions committee and worked in Alaska for probably 23 years.
Yeah, awesome. Well, is it fun being on this side of helping missionaries? And
It's fun being on both sides.
both sides, yeah, I would bet. That's great, awesome. And so how many years between Miami and Alaska and all those have you served on missions committees? Any ideas?
50 years or so.
Okay, wow, that's great. Dan, tell us your name and wife's name, and then how long you've been helping with missions.
I'm Dan Watt. My wife is Becky. I helped with missions early on, I believe, as a deacon. I did that for a while. As far as how many years, I have no idea. I'm actually kind of excited to be back into that area. It's something I enjoy doing. I have had the opportunity to go on a few short-term mission trips, so I have a real kind of a passion for that area. I like it.
Yeah, and a daughter that did some of that work.
Oh yes, yes. You know all about what it feels like to have a daughter going away for the summer. Brianna was gone for 3 different summers, and doing various mission work there, and it was
Yeah.
It was interesting. It's fascinating.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, tell us something that you enjoy or appreciate about serving in the missions ministry.
I enjoy serving on the missions committee with the people that are on there. We have good people serving on the missions committee. We can always use more. And I really enjoy meeting the missionaries when they're here, like for our missions fair or just a particular Sunday when they're here.
Yeah, that's great.
Several things. We actually talked about several of these questions in our mission committee meeting last Sunday, and various things were brought up. One of which is it's fascinating is the diversity. I mean, we've got local missions, we've got foreign missions, we have evangelistic style missions, we have and support like Salvation Army, which really isn't evangelistic per se in what they do, but it's more of a helping people in need.
Yeah.
And so we have a lot of we kind of cover the spectrum, and of course having various missionaries in lots of different places gives us a broader perspective on God's church worldwide. You know, sometimes we get locked into what's going on right here at First Christian in Miami, when God's church is so much bigger.
Yeah.
And it's good to be reminded of that and see those things.
Yeah. What challenges come with being a part of the missions ministry at First Christian Church?
Well, we mentioned the time element. We're in the central time zone, so sometimes if you're trying to communicate with somebody, they probably will, if they're a foreign missionary, they won't have the same time zone. So sometimes that can present some issues, or just trying to communicate with them. Some people are really good at getting back to you in an email or maybe a text, but other people, you might not hear from them for a while.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a challenge.
That would be.
And along with that, of course, is there are so many needs, and trying to do the best with what we have.
Right.
How can we meet the most, not necessarily the most urgent need, but the best needs.
Yeah.
Because we have limited resources, and that can become a challenge.
Yeah.
So.
For sure. What are some of the needs that you have as a ministry for our church that could be met by our church?
I'll start off on that one. Kind of first and foremost, and again, this is something we talked about at our mission committee meeting. We have a missions board, they're in the hallway, and right now we could really use a really creative person that is good at putting information out in a very attractive and attention-getting way.
Okay.
There's really not a lot of us that are, that's not our forte. We're not really good at that, and that is something we could really use. We can always use, like I said, more people to help with communication and just, letting an encouragement, letting our missionaries know we're thinking about them, that we're praying for them on a very regular basis.
Yeah.
Those are a couple of areas that we could use help in.
Yeah. Yeah.
And actually there's two displays. There's that missions board, and then there's the one that has people's pictures.
Yes.
And there's also that screen that, I'm not sure if that's actually working right now, but we did a PowerPoint on that for a while. So those are three areas.
Yeah.
Definitely could use some help on that. I would just say more people to be involved. Sometimes we feel like there's not very many of us.
Yeah.
You can always, the more people you have, the more ideas, and more people you can, sometimes you write letters, more that could do that. But we can always use more prayer. Especially for our missionaries. And so coming to the missions committee meeting, you are more aware of some of those prayer needs, and also prayers for us, is like you said, as you try to make good decisions on things.
Yeah. Well, people could do that whether from wherever they're at, but then as they volunteer, then you're saying that they could be a part of the committee, they could come and help with special projects like a board or the PowerPoint on the TV out in the foyer. Any other ways that people could get involved that you think of?
There's always short-term mission trips.
Right.
If any of those come up, again, I'd highly encourage anybody to go.
Yeah.
It's not for everybody, and we understand that.
Yeah.
But, you never know if you don't try.
Yeah. And I would guess that from someone that wants to get involved in something but maybe can't travel or things like that, then we might be able to help them through the committee too, to know what opportunities here in our community could be with some of the missions even that we support.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, a missions committee in a church is such not only a key role, but a window into the heart of a church. And we are grateful for all that you all do to share that heart and to represent us to our missionaries as well. So thank you for serving and loving the way that you do.
We enjoy the opportunity.
Yeah.
We really do.
Cool.
Yeah.
Any questions that we missed or anything that we left out?
One other comment I might say is one thing I feel that the missions committee does is kind of a link between the missionaries and the church both ways.
Yeah.
You know, a link. We're trying to communicate with the missionaries and tell them, you know, hey, we're praying for you,
Yeah.
and maybe some things to keep them in touch with the congregation, especially those that have grown up here like Nancy. So,
Yeah.
and then from the missionaries back to the people to try to help them know if there are special needs or concerns
Right.
or prayers that are needed.
And that's huge. I know from the perspective of feeling that togetherness, even though you're so far apart, and to be able to get that concept of brothers and sisters in Christ, co-workers. And I know that in the few experiences that I've had, that's such a bigger thing than sometimes here in the United States that we realize. And so that's a huge task.
Yeah, sometimes you feel very alone or discouraged.
Yeah. And for a bulletin board at a church or a screen or things like that to go up and then people not pay attention to it is sad in that case, but what an opportunity to be able to connect and to be able to know that missionary is not alone, but that they're heard and that they're valued and that they're prayed for. And so thank you for representing us in that way too. And I hope that we can partner with that as a church. But thank you for what you do.